大家午安，欢迎大家参加经济部生技药产业发展推动小组，简称生医推动小组或 BPIPO， 也同时是行政院指派的生物技术产业的单一窗口，期间主办的台英生医跨域创新技术与产品工作坊。Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for joining today's webinar, organized by the Biotechnology and Pharmaceutical Industry Promotion Office, short-term BPIPO, under the Ministry of Economic Affairs of Taiwan's government. We are also the office appointed by Taiwan's government to be the one-stop service office for Taiwan's biotechnology industries. Today's webinar is co-organized with our UK partners, who are the Northern Health Science Alliance, NHSA, the Leeds Teaching Hospital NHS Trust, LTHT, and the Yorkshire and Humber Academic Health Science Network, AHSN, on the introduction to the UK and NHS market, and the organization that can support your journey of your biomedical innovation R&D to clinical validations to ultimately being adopted and implemented by the UK's healthcare systems. Today's webinar is going to be conducted in English. Should you have any questions during the webinar, please remember to enter your questions by scanning the QR code located down at the bottom right of the YouTube video window. Or you can also enter your questions by clicking through the Google form link down below the YouTube video window as well. We'll stop collecting all the questions before our QA starts. So let's not wait any longer. Let's first welcome my director, the director of BPIPO, Dr. Herbert Wu, to give us today's webinar intro. Let's welcome Dr. Wu.
Hello, everyone joining today's webinar. We all know innovation is what the global biomedical sector strives for. However, an innovation will only be successful when it is of use to its target users. It needs to be of use to patients for their health management and disease treatment. It also needs to be of use to healthcare professionals to provide healthcare services in more efficient and higher quality way. At an even bigger level, it also needs to be of use to each country's national health service and insurance systems to help lessen financial burdens. To ensure your innovation will be of use to the global health market, working directly with patients, healthcare professionals, and the National Health Service or national health insurance systems to solve their unmet medical needs is absolutely necessary. That said, the BPIPO, as the government-affiliated office assisting the development of Taiwan's biomedical sector, would like to take the opportunity at today's webinar to introduce to Taiwanese companies BPIPO's partner in UK. The North Health Science Alliance, also known as NHSA, we share with you the collaborative strengths and the useful resources of the North of England and their 10 universities, 10 research-intensive NHS trusts, and 4 academic health science networks of England's National Health Service, also known as the NHS, for partnerships as well as an overview of the NHS. The Leeds Teaching Hospital NHS Trust, also known as the LTHT, which consists of the group of 7 hospitals, will share with you the unmet needs of hospitals, patients, and healthcare professionals, and how to collaborate with them and the NHS to co-develop and clinically validated solutions for priority innovation areas, including advanced diagnostics and therapeutics, health aging, digital health and digital hospitals, and AI, etc. The Yorkshire and Humber Academic Health Science Network, also known as YHAHSN, which serves as one of the key innovation arms of the NHS, will share how they co-build solutions from research and product development to implementation and commercialization with the industry, academia, and the healthcare providers to improve England's NHS. Together with their extensive experience in international collaborations, BPIPO believes that NHSA, LTHT, and AHSN will be Taiwan's companies' great partners in England's healthcare sector, supporting your journey of biomedical innovation, development, and advancement. From addressing the market needs of UK and the NHS, to clinically validating priority innovations of the NHS, patients, and healthcare sector, to eventually be adopted into the UK's health system. With that, I wish the webinar a success. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much to Dr. Wu's webinar intro. We will now have our first presentation for today's webinar by NHSA on the Northern Health Science Alliance, a life sciences supercluster in the north of England by Dr. Mandy Dixon, the head of corporate engagement, and Helen Ko, the industry partnership manager. Let's welcome Mandy and Helen.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having us to talk to you today. So I will be presenting an overview of the Northern Health Science Alliance. I will be providing a sense of where we are in the north of England, our members, how we work, and some of our areas of strength. And then my colleague Helen will provide a brief insight into the NHS and an overview of the northern ecosystem that can support you on your innovation pathway journey. And then we will hand over to our two colleagues, Neil, Nev, and Chris, who will provide some more detail about some of the membership organisations. So I'll start to the next slide, please, Helen. Thank you. So the north of England, so we cover the north of England, which, if you're familiar with England, is an area that is between the Midlands, sort of above London and below Scotland. The footprint of the UK is quite small, so we're about 170 miles from London, so not that far from the capital. And we have a number of city regions that make up our northern footprints. You might be familiar with some of those cities that you can see. They're very well connected in terms of airports and other key infrastructure. And next slide, please, Helen. So just a few key facts about the north to give you a bit of insight into the region. So we have a population of about 16 million, and we cover quite a large area of about 37,000 square kilometres. We have a combination of quite densely populated urban areas as well as quite remote rural populations. So we have some very big cities, but also some large areas that are quite sparsely populated. We have some areas that are disadvantaged, but we also have some of the best and most advanced healthcare systems in the UK. So if the North was a separate country, to give you an idea, it would be equivalent to the 10th largest economy in Europe. So it is a vibrant and active area of the UK. And I'll now just tell you a little bit about our members. So next slide, thanks. We have 10 university members. We have 24 members in total. So we have 10 world-class research institutes as our universities, and there is a list of universities on these slides which will be shared afterwards if you wanted to look at that in more detail. And next we also have 10 NHS hospital trusts. So we have these organisations are large organisations, and Chris will go into more detail and tell you more about them. So they often not just a single hospital, they run multiple hospitals with multiple departments, and are recognised for their research excellence in the UK. And then we also have our 4 academic health science networks, or AHSNs. as they're called, and these are tasked with improving and increasing the rate at which innovation moves from research into adoption. And these organisations also are at the front line of understanding the NHS need in their regions. So we have 4 AHSNs in the north. There are 15 across the country, and Nev will be telling you more about them when he does his presentation. So in total, we cover a vast number of organisations across the north. So in our 10 universities, we've got over 100,000 undergraduates. They bring in £1.25 billion annual research income. In our NHS, that we have turnover of over £6 billion, with some of the organisations having over £1 billion budgets per year. So these are significant organisations. The AHSNs across the north, as Nev will tell you, have worked with well over 1,000 companies and have generated over 58 million working with companies. So we have real assets across the north that we bring to you today. In terms of the we've got a very strong public infrastructure, I've mentioned. We also have very strong private industry cluster in the north of England. So we have over 1,000 health and life science companies. We've got a number, sort of more than 12 very large science and innovation parks. Some large, some small, but very well established and with, very well connected. And the whole industry for the region generates over £17 billion, with 40,000 plus jobs in the sector. So this means that we have a well-established infrastructure. There is a wide range of support organisations surrounding this. So specialist IP, access to finance, law firms, etc. So organisations that you need in the region to support you and to help you grow and to help find collaborators. So tell you a little bit about the role of the NHSA. So our purpose is to take all of that combined potential of the assets that I've talked about and maximise that, and bring that to an international audience as an opportunity. So we support UK life sciences across the globe, internationally. We work with our members to act as a front door for industry partnerships, and we are interested in partnerships. And we work with our members to showcase the strengths that we have in the north of England. And of course, we work to improve outcomes for patients and, of course, for the economy, to drive investment into the region. So we have a number of key areas that are strengths across the north. And within each of these areas, the NHSA has developed networks of experts. So we have quite well-established networks of academic, clinical experts and some links to industry in the UK within each of these areas. And they are advanced therapies, diagnostics and medtech, data and AI, mental health, health inequalities, and healthy aging. So those are the areas that we see particular strengths across the north. And are interested in collaboration in particular. I'll now hand over to my colleague Helen, who will provide an overview of the NHS from the perspective of an international innovator, and will take you through some of the considerations when thinking about technology adoption in the NHS and social care system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mandy, and good afternoon or good evening, everyone. My name's Helen Cole. I'm Industry Partnerships Manager at the NHSA, working with Mandy on supporting international innovators to come and work with our members across the north of England. This next section gives you a brief overview of our National Health Service and really identifies some of the different aspects you will need to consider in working within the complexity, and why having the support of our member organisations in your journey to adopt and work with the NHS in England is so important. So this next slide gives you just a sense and a flavour of navigating the healthcare landscape in England in particular. So it's a diagram that was produced by the King's Fund. It does look very detailed, but I'll just take you briefly through the important parts. So firstly, it's to emphasise that the NHS is a publicly funded single payer health system. We're not an insurance-based model here. We have quite a small proportion of private healthcare. It is mostly free at the point of need, is the expression from the institution of the National Health Service in the 1940s and 50s. What that means is the Treasury collects taxes and national insurance payments from the working population and sets budgets for the various government departments. It's the Department of Health and Social Care which looks after the budgets, as it says, for health and social care of the population of England. And to give you a sense of scale, in 2018-19, that budget was 130 billion UK sterling, which I believe is approximately 5,000 billion Taiwanese dollars. And that is divided up and spent by different organisations within England. Firstly, there is an amount that goes to capital projects or buildings and physical infrastructure. There's an amount goes off to things like the vaccination programs, public health. Of course, that became much more important through the pandemic, and you can be certain this budget increased in the last couple of years to address COVID-19, both diagnostics, vaccinations, etc., and the therapeutics. Then it moves on. So the majority, really, around 112 billion, comes to an organisation centrally called NHS England. It's now actually NHS England and Improvement. These things do change and move on all the time. It's quite a rapidly changing environment politically and with the government initiatives as they move on in time. So at this time it was NHS England only. It's now NHS England and Improvement. And they spend approximately 28 billion of that budget on central capital projects. So things like the rarer cancer treatments, the real high-end innovations. Often it's a small population need, so it needs careful scrutiny about where that budget is spent for best benefit to patients and the population. And again, the larger majority comes down to, this is changing also, so we'll just say the larger majority comes down to regional providers and regional commissioners. So those budgets fund things like the hospitals, the GPs, the general practitioners in primary care, the mental health services, community services, and decisions are made on a region by regional basis. And as Mandy explained, that in the hospital setting devolves down to providers of services such as the NHS Trusts, of which we're going to hear from Chris McKee, who represents Leeds NHS Trust, one of the largest in the north. And also these services can receive money from local authorities and from private health payers. But the important thing is to say that the majority is a single payer tax funded health system. And if I go on to explain what that means for you as a company, really the key advice we would give to you is that bear in mind there is no single buyer for you to pitch to, and really landing and successfully being adopted in the UK with your technologies comes from winning the hearts and minds when it comes to procurement. So you need to make your clinical case and persuade them of your clinical evidence to the end users, doctors, nurses, patients themselves often. You need to consider making a financial case and a business case to the finance officers in those trusts. Is your technology better or faster or cheaper than what they buy at the moment, and persuade them that that's a good benefit to taking your technology on instead of what they're currently procuring. And finally, making the operability case to management. So once you've done that at one single trust, they can then support you to scale up and be adopted elsewhere through endorsing and promoting and being an advocate for that particular technology if they're really convinced that you've brought benefit to their patients. And indeed the healthcare system, we are having to look at the spend and the value and the economics at all times as well. So when you understand that business model, you'll probably see that a pitch that works for you, for example, in the USA, isn't likely to work here in the UK without some modification, and we can help you with that. So things like, as was very well explained, I think, by the director of the BPIPO in the introduction, the key importance is that you establish you're solving an unmet clinical need here in England. Our members can help you with that. They can help identify where there are real healthcare challenges in our population in the north, and where technological solutions would be of great interest and would meet the appetite of the people you're wanting to connect with, the service providers. Do need to think in terms of partnerships rather than simply selling and sales. We can help you find a mentor and a navigator through our Academic Health Science Network colleagues, who you will also hear from Nev in this session, and they will help you navigate for your particular technology, really who you should be speaking to, where you can get clinical expertise and support, and where you can potentially get some funding for some collaborative research. Really important, and I will come on to say more about this in the next section, is engaging as early as possible in your technology development to find those champions. We see time and again really some research and development budgets from SMEs probably having been spent in ways that aren't as advantageous further down the line. You know, you really need to understand your endpoint adoption goals here in the NHS and the clinical pathways you will fit into in order to design your studies at a very early stage and maximise the use of your R&D budgets, your research and development budgets. I will go on to say more about that. Patience is a virtue, as they say, and that's certainly the case. You know, you won't be able to come across here and be instantly successful. It will take time, and that needs to be planned for. And finally, it's really important as well to think about getting a UK presence. That builds trust and it unlocks access to more opportunities, including funding here in the UK and England. And all that really means it can be as simple as a hot desk in a science park or a virtual office. It doesn't need, it can start small, but then you would have the opportunity to grow as a company here in the UK once you've got that initial UK presence. So now I'll go on to tell you a little bit more about why it's so important to consider your evidence generation when you want to speak to UK and NHS professionals. So this next section is about technology adoption at scale in our National Health Service and social care system. So because we're that single payer healthcare system funded by the public taxpayers, there's great scrutiny on the spend by government on various budgets and programmes, including the Department of Health. So we follow what's known as the Health Technology Assessment, or HTA model, of clinical and economic evaluation here in England. So technology developers such as yourselves and companies in Taiwan need to evidence not only the clinical effectiveness, but also the economic case for your new interventions to justify that taxpayer spend. The organisation here in England who fulfills that role is called the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, or NICE. And their role is to improve health and well-being of the population by putting science and evidence at the heart of health and care decision making by those commissioners and providers who determine where the budgets will be spent. And NICE produces guidance or recommendations for NHS adoption of medical technologies, diagnostics, digital technologies and others through its health HTA programmes, its health technology assessment programmes. And its process and methods are currently under review, but that again is something we and our partners keep an eye on and can move as things change for you. So what I'd like to come on and just mention briefly is, as I said, to maximise your R&D budgets, you do need to consider the endpoint you want to get to from the outset when you're planning your clinical studies and health economics. Framework for health technology assessment goes under what's called PICO, P-I-C-O. Very simply, P stands for the population or the patient groups your technology serves. So it could be adults, it could be children, paediatrics, it could be particular clinical health conditions or a range of conditions. You need to really understand and explain who your population and patient group are for your technology. The intervention, I, is your technology. It's your innovative solution to an unmet clinical need, to a different way of working, to something we use currently. And that current clinical use and clinical pathway will be served by the comparator technology, which you need to understand here in England, how your patient population is served by a different comparator at the moment and how your intervention compares against that, ideally improves the clinical patient benefits or is cheaper, it's more economically advantageous for equivalent clinical performance, for example. And lastly, O stands for the outcome measures. So you need to really understand what the measures are of importance to clinical provision here, the clinical experts who work in the disease areas that you're targeting with your technology. what matters to them, what outcome measures do they want to see for patients, for resource use. Do you reduce the length of stay in hospital, for example, through a better technology? So that's what the outcome measures are that are of interest here in England. So using that PICO framework for your study design, you do also need to include the setting in which your technology will be used. We saw in that initial diagram that you could be serving primary care and GPs. You might have a technology that helps patients to look after themselves in their own homes, or community services. So in other words, settings that reduce the cost and burden of patients going into hospital, those technologies can be of interest as well here in our system. Understanding the current National Health Service care pathways for the population of interest of your intervention is really key to identifying your comparator technologies to set up your studies for HTA. And again, that's where certainly our NHS partners and our AHSNs can help with that, connect you to the right people who really help you understand how patients are served currently and where your intervention might improve things for them. So lastly, the clinical and economic outcome measures in your evidence base, importantly, must match the claims that you make about the benefits to your intervention over its comparators in that population of interest, which is why early on, when you've got your research and development budgets, think about that right from the beginning, who you're going to be targeting, how you want to show your technology is better than the comparator. And again, that's how we can help. So this is the last slide from me. Again, it's another quite detailed one, but it's something you could look at and spend some time on afterwards. Really, it's just to illustrate the research and innovation infrastructure we have in the north of England. So whether you're still at a discovery stage, we've got support through our universities, and we can reach in and get you access to other infrastructure that will help you collaborate and co-develop at an early discovery stage. If you're moving on from discovery into translational development, we can help you there, again, with a range of organisations who can also access funding. If you have a UK presence, for example, there's different eligibility criteria around that. Manufacturing, in good manufacturing practice, we have access and reach into those organisations. If you are ready for either just about pre or post regulatory CE marking, we can look at organisations that can help you with your clinical evaluation studies. And then once you are post-regulatory and post-CE marking, we can help with adoption and diffusion into the NHS. And that's where our colleagues, Chris and Nev, will be able to tell you in much more detail about how the NHS Trust supports companies, and same for the academic health science networks. So I think on that gives the brief overview from me and from the Northern Health Science Alliance as a membership organisation that connects all of our members and scales and offers to companies the opportunity to work with single, multiple, whatever it is you need. And I'll hand over to Chris at this point to tell you Jess from a National Health Service perspective at Leeds NHS Trust. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much to Mandy and Helen's presentation. And we will now have our second presentation for today's webinar by Dr. Christopher McKee, the Business Development and Innovation Manager of the Leeds Teaching Hospital NHS Trust, to share with us on the unmet needs of the hospitals of the future and doing the things the Leeds way. So that's welcome, McKee.
Thank you, Susan. So morning, everybody. As has been said, my name is Chris, and it's great to speak to you all today. And I have the pleasure of following on from that that fantastic event, that fantastic presentation that the NHSA just did, and perhaps give you a little bit more of a focused idea of how you can engage with one of the larger city regions and one of the larger trusts within the NHS. So I'm hoping now to give you a bit more of an idea of what it's like to work with one of those key organisations that both Mandy and Helen have just described to you. So for those of you who don't already know, we'd like to give you a quick overview of what the Leeds City region, so that you have an idea of the scope and scale of the city as well. So a very quick welcome from Leeds and the city region. So this is actually the largest city in the county of West Yorkshire, which is based in northern England. So we're very well located in the north of England, quite close to Manchester and a bit south of Newcastle, to give you an idea of geography. Leeds does actually have one of the most diverse economies of all of the UK's main employment centres, and has seen the fastest rate of private sector jobs growth of any UK city. And this, I believe, has still been the case even following the pandemic, which has obviously affected us all. We have quite a large population here. of roughly about 2.6 million within the city region itself. And all of these people are actually part of our electronic healthcare record system, unless they actually choose not to be part of it themselves. So everyone is immediately consented to that unless they choose not to be. So quite a large population to engage with there. And this, of course, is more than just a city. This actually includes, as a city region, many surrounding towns and villages. And you can see some pictures of the beautiful landscape of Yorkshire around here as well. And this is referred to as the Leeds City region. So quite a lovely place to visit if any of you are thinking of coming to the UK, and we'd be more than happy to host you if you do so. So you've heard a lot about the NHS, and as the NHSA team described, it can be quite complex, and there's sort of no one single entry point for you. And as a result, I thought it would be helpful to try and help you to understand the structure of the NHS and why it's seen as such a complicated system to engage with, and how we can simplify that process. So the NHS as a whole, the National Health Service, actually covers the whole of the United Kingdom, which includes all of the devolved states, which includes Northern Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So as you can see, it's already quite a large ecosystem. And we here at the Leeds Teaching Hospital Trust work for NHS England. Now, if you were to engage with the NHS at the level of NHS England, for example, I think you would find it's far too big, far too complex, and it's often not the right way to go. And they would actually advise that you speak at a more local level. So within NHS England, and this would be the same for the other NHS organisations of the UK, you have what are called trusts or individual organisations. And the Leeds Teaching Hospital NHS Trust is an example of this, and I will go into more detail about this. This could also be the same for community care. You also have general practices as well, which are covered by what are now referred to as the ICSs. And so there's quite a few different ways you can enter, which could be relevant to the technology that you're putting on offer here. So for us as a hospital trust, we focus on secondary care systems and acute care settings, although there's a lot more coverage now of working directly with community so that we're connected with our patients, which I will go into more detail in a moment. So to give you an idea of the trust as a whole, so you can have an idea of the Leeds Teaching Hospital Trust and why we would like to work with innovators across the board, and give you also an example of one of the larger trusts in the UK. So by no means is this your only entry point. You have other superb city regions like Manchester, Newcastle, London's obviously very famous. But to give you an example of where I work in Leeds, I thought this would be very useful for you. So we are the second largest trust in the whole of the UK, which is, as it's been described before, a collection of seven different hospitals, all covered by a single organisation. We are, or at least we have been known as the largest teaching hospital in Europe. So we are by no means a small organisation. And all these 7 different hospitals, research is always at its core, along with clinical services. And as we move along, innovation is very much part of that research programme. We have a very large range of clinical services here. In fact, the only services that we don't do are adult heart transplants and severe burns. So mostly everything else we cover here as a range of services that we offer. We also have several clinical research infrastructures based here in Leeds, which are often bridged with the universities that we have in the city as well, which includes multiple disciplines here, including diagnostics, digital health, surgery, musculoskeletal disease, centres for first-in-man studies to break that translational clinical barrier as well. There's quite a lot on offer here that you can engage with, and I'd be people like me in my role are there to help navigate this quite complex ecosystem to help focus your technology in the right direction. So a few further points of interest. So we do deliver one of the widest ranges of clinical services of any trust in the UK, and as I mentioned, the only things we don't do are severe burns and adult heart transplants. Most, if not all, of these clinical services are really they're crying out for innovation. They really want to do things differently, modernize, work with innovators, and that's where my role as a business development and innovation manager comes in to help navigate you to the right clinical team. As long as it addresses an unmet need within our system, there's usually a very good opportunity to work together on that. We're also one of only 10 hospital trusts in the UK that are actually accredited to deliver CAR-T therapies. And we have a growing portfolio of cell and gene therapy research, and we're very, very interested in the field of advanced therapeutics as a result. We refer to things as, in this city, as doing things the Leeds way. This is kind of our catchphrase, but ultimately what this means, and you can Google it as well if you want more detail, but really it's about putting the patients at the heart of everything we do. And obviously innovation is then very much going to be at the core of that, and how we can improve upon our services. We want to work with innovators, large and small, startups all the way to large corporates, to improve our patient health and also improve economic wealth within the NHS. So health and wealth is often a phrase that we refer to. So by improving patient outcomes and improving the quality of life of our patients, this actually results in an economic benefit as well, because they're having to use our National Health Service system less frequently. And as you've seen, this is a publicly funded healthcare system, the largest one in the world, in fact. And of course, we always wish to ensure the highest quality of care, both in and out of hospital, for our patients. So we have some exciting news to announce for you all today. There's actually a couple of different things I would like to focus on, which I think would be of great interest to you all. The first is that we have been invested for 2 new research hospitals. The figure here is actually incorrect. It's now actually closer to £650 million of investment at this point in time. These are being referred to as digital hospitals of the future, and for us in Leeds, we're going to be the first 2 hospitals of 6 in total that have been funded, which is part of the sort of the modernisation of our healthcare system. And for us, this includes a world-class children's hospital site, which we're really excited about, to expand upon our current children's hospital, and a second state-of-the-art adult hospital, which will be actually replacing one of our current hospitals called the Leeds General Infirmary. Research and innovation needs to be at the heart of all of this, so our team is very much plugged into all of the activities of these new hospitals, which are planned to open by 2025 currently, although it's possible there may be some delays. Roughly 2025 will be the time where it opens, and we want to start working with innovators now. Full site development is actually going to be completed by 2030, and the plans for this is to get even further investments to establish a full innovation ecosystem, what I like to refer to as an innovation village or an innovation district around these new hospitals. And this will of course include innovation hubs and a multiple range of different services. So quite a lot of activity will be taking place over the next 10 years. So of course, going digital means quite a lot for us. We do obviously have a well-established framework of electronic healthcare record systems, but digital health is always expanding and always evolving. And this is by no means the only areas of service that we wish to work with. It's just giving you an idea of some of the things that we can work with. So the hospitals of the future will be focusing a lot on the utilization of digital health and AI solutions, as well as things we already are quite good at, including medical technology solutions and a range of different health solutions. So this is about modernizing our services as well as doing what we're already very capable of doing. So this would include things like improving patient triaging through our services, discharge pathways as well, improving discharge pathways as a whole, improving our diagnostics using a collection of in vitro diagnostic solutions, as well as those that use artificial intelligence-based solutions for diagnostic purposes. Improve our general services, so we are interested in things that are just about service improvements. The use of augmented reality and virtual reality is becoming very popular, and we're already thinking about expanding those services as well. We we're basically expecting to have a full innovation hub. This will actually be in 2022, but we already have what we refer to as the innovation pop-up, which I will describe in a moment, which is the first step of this innovation hub ecosystem that we want to describe to you. And we want to work with you now. We don't want to wait until the new hospitals are open. We want to work with innovators that address unmet needs in our system, pretty much so that they are ready to go at the point where those hospitals open. So we are very, very much open to collaboration and opportunity, and seeing how we can help you as a business is kind of key, just as key for us, as well as improving our healthcare system. So the second thing I wanted to let you know about, and this is kind of fresh news for everybody, is about our new innovation pop-up facility, which we refer to as an open front door to engage with the NHS. So we really are trying to ease this process for you engaging with the National Health Service and linking to our hospital system. So the innovation pop-up came as an idea to just get innovation going now, really. So it's the first phase of this health innovation district or health innovation village as part of the Leeds General Infirmary redevelopment site. We didn't want to wait until we had investment to have a full facility or a full hub. We really wanted to just get going. So we then decided we managed to get some space within the hospital that we could use. And then we just opened up this pop-up facility and got things going now. And this actually soft launched in April to lay the groundwork for future phases of developing this hub. And this also provides now a dedicated space to work with industry and strategic partners, of which we have several. The full official launch will actually be happening next month, and there is an event on the 16th of September, which you're all more than welcome to join, which will be joined by several other organisations, including ours, to launch a range of different very interesting initiatives. So I recommend joining that as well if you have time, and that event will also be recorded. I will make it available on my LinkedIn as well. So that will be the official launch of our innovation pop-up. The idea of this facility really is to anticipate the needs of our healthcare system and try and create a more expansive culture of innovation within the hospital. Because although you may bring hospital to in front of clinical teams, they may not always engage with it purely based on the fact that they haven't done so before. So we really want to create this thriving culture of innovation within the Leeds teaching hospitals to prepare us to deliver the best technology and innovations for patients when those new hospitals open. We do already have a pretty well-established culture of innovation across many of our services, and people are very, very open and collaborative and very engaging, but we want to expand on this even further and put this across all of our services in the Trust. We wish to provide personalised support around the field of innovation for our staff, academics and industry partners, and we are on hand to do so, as we have done for several years, but this is now an even more formal way of doing so. Obviously, anything we bring to the region will support local economic recovery and promote regional skills and talent agenda as well, so we're very connected to the local enterprise partnerships, for example, and the local council for those sorts of discussions. We want to really rapidly build up momentum within the next year, really. So within a year, we're hoping to actually have investment to start establishing and building a full innovation facility, rapidly scale up, rapidly increase the number of staff in here because there's only a small number of us at the moment, fully resource this, and also provide a full clinical simulation space, which we're already in the process of doing. Within 5 years, we will then start the plans for actually establishing the innovation district as described. So quite a lot of things that you can talk to us about, and that I'm sure would be of great interest to you. So I don't really want to go into much detail, but the vision for beyond 2025-26 really is to work really to rapidly translate, adopt and scale technology into our hospitals and also into the NHS as a whole. So this is the thing we would like to offer that's slightly different to, let's say, an accelerator or an incubator, which would be more of an office space for you. For us, it's about really getting that technology through the clinical pipeline as efficiently as we can and working with our partners in order to do so. We cannot guarantee procurement of every technology that comes our way, but we can help to generate the evidence that behind that to see if we can build a business case in order to do so. But either way, we would be quite open to working with a range of innovators to help generate that evidence. And that's what this innovation district will really try to embody when it's there. We would like to make ourselves seen as a gold standard or a global leader in this process, and that is kind of our vision for the future. So everything else I've kind of already described in the talk in the last slide. In terms of branding, you've seen this a few times already, but this is the branding that we've locked in on. So if you ever see this on your travels, this is the brands that we will be using at least for the near future. So we're quite excited that we've now got an official brand and we have our own identity, which we will be showcasing quite frequently. In terms of our location, we're actually at a fantastic location. So we're pretty much centred right in the city centre next to the Leeds General Infirmary. and we have a range of strategic partners very close by to us as well. The advantage for you, of course, is that we are on the real estate, the NHS real estate. We're in the hospital itself, and so any work that you do and any engagement that you have there, you're straight in the NHS through the front door. The clinical teams are just up the corridor, and it's based in this beautiful Victorian building that you can see in the bottom corner. And this is already proving to be quite successful because the clinicians don't even have to go off-site realistically to come and meet you, at least in the Leeds General Infirmary. So this is already proving to be very successful, even though we haven't fully launched yet. As stated here, this is a really nice building. It's actually a listed building designed by the famous architect Gilbert Scott, who also designed St Pancras train station down in London. And it really is quite wonderful to work in this place. And most of the space in here is actually going to be used for the purposes of our innovation plans. So very much embodies that, the old with the new message. And we'd love to show you around if you come over to the UK. To show the effectiveness, we do already have our first resident company in here, even though we only have a small amount of space. So we're already getting companies in that are providing a service to the trust. And the first one is actually a medical 3D printing company called 3D Life Prints. And the idea behind this technology is to provide medical 3D printing at point of care. They're working currently with pediatric cardiology and neurosurgery, but several other services are in the pipeline to work with them, including orthopedics, transplant surgeons are interested, and cranial maxillofacial surgery as well. So they use a combination of sort of 3D, digital 3D imaging to start with, to sort of navigate around certain points of interest, and then they will use 3D printing for surgical planning, training, and a right first time approach to surgery if needed. And these chaps can actually be visited right now if ever you visit visitors in the UK as well. So as we've already got this first company in, and we're keen to get even more in, either as members or as resident companies if they're providing a service. So following on from that, really, what does this mean for you? So we want to work with innovators at all stages of the R&D pipeline, really, from more academic-based projects and startups and small to medium enterprises, all the way to large corporates. So we're keen to really to work with those in all aspects of healthcare and medicine, and at least redirect you to the right points. And working with the academic health science networks and the Northern Health Science Alliances is also a vital part of that pathway. So for academics on the call, we can certainly give you support, easy support for access to collaboration opportunities and research opportunities with our wide range of academics at the University of Leeds and the other universities that are also within the city region. For the small to medium enterprise and startups amongst you, we can definitely support you on your clinical journey if we find opportunity to collaborate, especially if you're addressing unmet needs within our system. We can identify and apply for a range of funding that we have here in the UK. Some of it doesn't even require you to be based in the UK in order to have it, although there is more funding available if you do have a UK registered address of some sort. And we can connect you to the leading clinical experts who are both academic and non-academic in nature. So we do have a range of what we refer to as clinical academics as well. Large corporates, if there are any on the call, we can of course help give you access to our clinical trial facilities, a large cohort of patients, many samples that we have within our biobanking facilities that may be accessible, and of course our electronic healthcare record system, which has over 2 million patients within that system, which is extremely valuable data as a whole. So there's always something that we can help with. We'd like to work with you as partners, really, give you access, support your access to the clinical expertise that we have, which also includes multidisciplinary pathology, radiological services, and pharmacy. So it's not just about all of the frontline services. It is about the whole pathway. We would like to help you have access to our very engaged patients. We have a lot of very active patient public involvement groups who are key also for guiding technologies, because these are also going to be the users of your technology, because ultimately a lot of this will be used on them, and it's very important to get their opinion. We can help get access to samples if needed, either prospectively or retrospectively if we already have them. And of course, real-time data for studies and trials is something that we routinely do in terms of extracting that from our electronic healthcare record system for the use of research purposes. In terms of methodological expertise that we can offer here, we have a range of metrology-based approaches. We have a data governance team which will help you understand data governance within the UK. We do have dedicated IT services for data informatics solutions for integrating technology into our electronic healthcare record system. We work very closely with the universities at York and the University of Leeds, typically for health economic analysis, which I will say, do not underestimate the usefulness of health economics to show the cost benefit of your solution, not just in the UK, but actually on a global scale. To help with trial design, we're very, very well set up to do that. And of course, as I've already mentioned, informatics is an area we can certainly support. To give you a bit of a case study, although we don't have any from Taiwan at this point in time, which is why we're here speaking to you to try and start some engagement with yourselves. But in terms of an international company, we like to mention is a case study here with a company called BPIPO Therapeutics, who were actually based in Israel. I first engaged with BPIPO Therapeutics in 2019 at a conference, and it was a very informal discussion about their technology, which is essentially the micropancreas solution using stem cell based technology. They were invited to the UK quite rapidly after this event to have typically just present at a seminar, meet the clinical and academic teams, and see if there was further points and opportunities to work together. Of course, some of these meetings were planned in advance to make sure that the trip was worthwhile, but it really is as simple as that, making a connection point and then coming over to see us, or vice versa. Several work streams have now been established since 2019. Even though COVID has slowed things down, we're still very much moving ahead. So we're providing preclinical support to advance their earlier stage research. We're planning currently a trial for their first-in-man studies, which is expected to start next year, and also further academic collaborations for further points of interest for that company. So we're really helping them through that full clinical pipeline. This is actually a multi-institution partnership at this point in time. We brought everyone to the table that was needed to do this study, including the Trust, the University of Leeds, Newcastle University, and NHR organisations as well. So this is how we function really. We find everyone that's needed to achieve our joint goals. We bring them to the table. We're by no means a siloed organisation. We will work across the whole ecosystem in order to achieve our mutual goals. They actually have been so impressed with working with us that they've established their first UK-based company called BPIPO in UK, and they've opened up a lab facility last year, which they are now actively using, and they've had their first staff in the UK as well. And they've actually acquired their first successful UK grant as well from Innovate UK since coming to the UK. So a very good example of how we can work with international and non-EU companies and organisations to support each other. Of course, there's always a wider networks that can support you, and several of them are actually on this call today. The further support that you could be offered, of course, would be from the academic health science networks. For us, that locally would be the Yorkshire and Humber team, and they are based across the whole of England. And I won't say too much about this because Neville and Neil will be giving you the full summary of the AHSN network soon. The Northern Health Science Alliance have already introduced themselves, and they will be a valuable partner to engage across the whole of the Northern ecosystem and beyond, to be honest. And also we have the Leeds Local Enterprise Partnership as well, which are a very, very useful team to engage with from a corporate standpoint, because they can actually help you if you're interested in engaging and embedding within the region. So there's a range of different support services that we can link you up to through our vast networks. So it was mentioned earlier in the NHSA talk as well that if you are interested in the UK and the different models that you can actually expand over this way, there would be places that you could go to, which would include places like Alderley Park and larger sites. But in Leeds, we also have a very interesting and almost unique centre called Nexus that I just wanted to let you know about in case you were interested. And very often our partners, once they've established quite a lot of work with us, end up engaging with the Nexus in order to look at expanding their business into the UK through several different models. So this is Nexus. It's actually based very close to the hospitals, and it's based directly on the University of Leeds site. It's quite a beautiful modern building, and it's a very kind of open space through which collaboration just thrives, really. So it's really is quite a lovely location in the centre of the city. Really, they provide a range of services connected to the university, but also beyond that, and working with ourselves, of course, in the healthcare sector. So it helps you to conduct the research you need to develop and test your innovative products and services. They help to improve your business performance for the development of new techniques and technologies. They help you to de-risk investment in research and innovation through their very experienced team that comes all as part of the service. They help you to improve your competitiveness and your productivity. Provide access to a portfolio of patented technologies that the university already has as well, which could be synergistic with yourselves. They help you to assist you with research and innovation funding, which we are also on hand to do, but this team is also a very more than capable of helping you to acquire funding, and we often work together in partnership to do this. If you're interested in any immediate graduate talent for your business needs, they can help you tap into that. And actually quite a few of the companies in there tend to hire recent graduates at all levels, whether straight out of a bachelor's all the way to a PhD or even a postdoc. They are often swept up by the companies that come into this facility. They help to provide you with an access to a range of training programs to develop your workforce, both in the UK and without. And as a whole, I think they're a very useful organization to engage with. You also do not necessarily have to have a physical presence in this facility. There are virtual membership options, so you can join their virtual community, technically register your company in the UK through that virtual community package. So Nexus would become your UK address, which will allow you then to register on Company House, and therefore gain access to the other funding streams that I mentioned earlier that are typically only available to those UK-based companies. So please come and collaborate with us, really. It's a very simple two-step process. If you can feel free to contact us directly through the website here. You can take a quick screenshot of this or wait for the video once it's uploaded. You can email me directly on two of my email addresses. Either are fine to use. It's a simple process of really sharing a non-disclosure agreement between us before circulating any confidential material around to our different stakeholders. But we could certainly just have an initial informal chat about non-confidential material. We're always very open to those discussions, especially if it addresses an unmet need within our system. So a quick scoping call with a theme lead or a clinical lead and all the required team members would then take place following that. And then should they find the opportunity to collaborate, everything kind of comes from there, and we work together to then decide a plan of action and next steps. So thank you very much, and I'd be very happy at the end of this, the next call from the AHSN to answer any questions. And some of my details are here, including my Twitter account and link. I will now hand over to Nev, Young, and Neil from the Academic Health Science Network. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much to Chris for your very informative presentation. And right now, we've actually received quite a few questions from the audiences. But then again, because we are going to have a Q&A session after our third presentation, so we are actually going to encourage all of the audiences to enter your question. Any question you have, you can just simply enter through the QR code that is being located at the bottom right corner of the YouTube video window, or you can simply enter your questions through the Google link provided down below the YouTube video window. So let's now have our last presentation for today's webinar. Let's welcome Dr. Neville Young, the Director of Enterprise and Innovations, to share with us on the introduction to the Yorkshire and Humber Academic Health Science Network. Let's welcome Neville.
Good morning, everyone. Just get my slides up. Okay, I hope you can all see my slides. First of all, big thank you to Susan for organising everything today, and obviously to Dr. Wu for his kind introduction at the start of the session this morning. It's great to be here. It's great to be talking to you about what's going on in the UK. Yes.
Sorry, Neville. We are actually, right now, we only see a white screen of your presentation. Do you want to reshare your presentation again?
I'll try again.
Thank you so much.
See how we get on. Can we see anything now?
Well, actually, right now we see a minimized size of your presentation. Can you actually put it to full screen?
It is in full screen on my side, so we're having some problems, aren't we?
Yes.
It was working in the warm up.
It's okay. Let's try it again. Is that okay? Yeah, so I think now it's okay.
Now it's okay.
What do you want to reshare again? I guess the internet connection is somehow being affected. So then, good. Yes, now you're ready to go.
We're good to go. Okay, apologies about that.
It's okay.
And again, thanks for having me here today. I'll try and talk a little bit about what the AHSN network is and where we operate in the international space this morning. The AHSN network covers the whole of England. So it's really helpful today to be talking about some of the things that are on offer in the north of England and also on offer in Leeds, which Chris and Mandy have talked about already this morning. I seem to be having some issues getting through my slide deck. Here we go. I think this is getting better now. But the AHSN covers the whole of England. And actually, if you're going to come to the UK as a market, you may wish to land in the north of England, and I would strongly recommend that you do think about that. And that you do look at organisations like the Leeds Teaching Hospital as a place to do that. But actually, if you want to sell into this market, you want to be selling into the whole of the market. And the AHSN is a vehicle to help you do that. We were very kindly and generously described as the innovation arm of the NHS at the start of this seminar series. And in many respects, we are. And what we're really interested in as an organisation is in products that are market ready, that maybe don't have evidence in our market, but are approved in your market and are ready to be used at some sort of scale in the NHS. And we're looking for products that are better for patients, improve patient outcomes, and drive efficiencies in our NHS system. Dr. Wu talked a little bit about that at his intro as well. And if it works well in our region, in the north of England, we are a vehicle to spread that innovation across the whole of England. And as you can see from this slide, the AHSN network works with a multitude of other international partners. And this is just a snapshot of some of those partners that we work with. We work to export UK innovation, but we're also really interested in bringing innovation from other territories into the UK because essentially your problems are probably very similar to our problems. You know, how do we use digital and AI to deliver better healthcare? What do we do with an aging population with increased rates of, you know, diabetes, musculoskeletal disease, neurodegenerative disorders? What do we do with a health system that's under a lot of pressure, that's emerging from a pandemic situation? You know, these are the challenges that we are all faced with. So innovations from any territory that address these issues are very welcome in the UK. The AHSN, as I said, covers the whole of England. Essentially, we are a field force of about 700 or 800 individuals spread across 15 territories, all responsible for trying to improve lives, saving the NHS money, and really importantly, driving economic growth. We are partly funded by the NHS, the health system, but we're also partly funded by the Office of Life Sciences, which is really interested in economic growth, So we're really interested in bringing the best businesses in your territories to our territory and helping you embed. Now, if you need to develop evidence or do research on your product, then I think, you know, what Chris talked about earlier, embedding yourself in a hospital like Leeds and building your evidence base, building a clinical champion, that's really important. But selling to one hospital in the UK isn't going to make that your investment worthwhile. We as an AHSN are really interested in how we take you from one organisation to many in the region, and then many in the country. And I think that's where the AHSN really has, you know, an opportunity to help you and your business as you want to sell more product into our territory. We've got really deep knowledge of our systems. We work really closely with the partners we've had on the call today, and we work really closely across the whole of the UK with similar arrays of partners. Chris talked about LTHT being one of the biggest hospitals in the UK with a £1.4 billion annual budget. You know, almost 500 million of that is on non-pay spend. There are several other hospitals in our region, not as big, but in that £1 billion turnover category. So there's a lot of market for you to go at in our region in terms of going after the spend. And I guess this sort of slide gets to why you want to come to the UK market as a whole. You know, the NHS is a big organisation. You know, it's the 5th largest employer in the world. So we've got nearly 2 million, well, 1.7 million staff. So actually innovation that helps our workforce is really important to us as well. We've got a really unique, unified clinical data asset. All of our patient records are now digital. Well, I say that 90% of them are now digital. And there's a real opportunity for people who are interested in really well annotated data sets to come and work in the UK. You know, in our region alone, I think we've got 5.8 million patients. They're all on one unified electronic healthcare record system. And that's an opportunity for you if you're using data-driven algorithms in your innovation to come and engage, whether that be imaging, whether that be clinical data or radiology data. There's an opportunity to come and have conversations about how you might interact with some of that data and those patient data sets. And to be clear, the NHS spends £130 billion a year on health, and £6 billion of that is spent on health tech. So there's a real opportunity to tap into that market. And you know, the government is committed in the UK to supporting health tech innovation. You know, there's a long-term industrial strategy in place to support health tech with funding, and that's delivered through some of our leading universities. Chris alluded to some of that earlier, as did Mandy, and some of the R&D infrastructure that exists in the UK. The NIHR, the National Institute for Health Research, the AHSN network, Innovate UK, and the government actually is committed to spend 2.4% of GDP on research and development, not research, not R&D that should be, but that comes up to about £95 million a year available to be spent in R&D in the UK. So if you come to this market, all of that's available to help you. And the AHSN, we really play a role in helping you navigate around the system. It's a really complex system, and it's the same everywhere. It's the same in every market. You need some sort of wayfinding function to find your way around, to find the right clinical leaders, to find the right support that's available to you, and to think about where you might want to put down roots. So you might think, well, if I'm going to the UK, I need to move to London. London's extremely expensive place to live, to rent office space. If you move north, there's opportunities to save on costs, but there's just as much going on up there in terms of opportunity. And to be perfectly honest, the north has got more healthcare challenges than the south of England, and we need innovation, if anything, more than the south. So please bear that in mind if you're making a decision about coming to this market. What does the AHSN do? Well, we deal with thousands of innovators every year. I think last year we dealt with something like 2,500 to 3,000 innovators, 3,000 to 4,000 different products came across our books. And our initial and very basic offer in the UK is about really thinking about doing some very basic triage of an innovation. Is there any pull in the NHS for this innovation? Now, it's less common now, but we used to find a lot of people would have innovations that nobody needed. Nice technology, but not addressing a problem in the NHS. So I think one of the skills of the AHSN as a national network is really testing your ideas in terms of, do they meet a need in our market? And if they don't, we'll tell you. And that's not to say there might not be other markets where your innovation is really needed. But I think one of the things that we're good at now in the HSN network is telling you there's not an appetite, or there is an appetite for a particular innovation. And we're very good at doing that very basic value proposition. What's your price point? And what are we going to get out of it? So if we invest some money in your product, what is our return on investment going to be? And I think we do that for a lot of UK businesses and international businesses who come to our market. We can provide more in-depth support in things like really detailed market opportunity analysis. What's the pathway? What's the volume? What are you trying to do? Where is your innovation going to disrupt the pathway? And what are the consequences of that? We can help you with cost-benefit analysis work, putting you in touch with people like Chris in Leeds, who can bring you into an organization to do the work, but also people who can do the evaluation. We can help you with your business case for, how do you talk to the NHS as a customer? If you get into a situation where you're discussing contracts, how do you do that? What do they want to hear? Who do you need to talk to? What language should you use? We can help you with that. Procurement, like in any country, procurement is complex. We can help you navigate that complexity. Patient engagement is really, really important in the UK around products that you're bringing into the market. Do citizens and the public engage with the innovation that you're bringing to the market? It's really important that we do that. That helps us address health inequalities challenges that are rife at the moment in the NHS, where COVID has shone a light on some of the health inequalities that exist in our health ecosystem in the UK. People from certain ethnic and economic backgrounds really struggle to take the advantage of what's on offer in our healthcare system. And digital tools in particular can drive that wedge even further. So they can really drive health inequalities. And actually, we can help you as you bring your product to our market to really understand that challenge and help deal with it. That health economic analysis that Chris talked about, again, we can help you with that as well. And we know where the grants are. We know where you should be applying for funding. I mean, I sit on several boards, of various funding organisations, and we're really keen on shaping the opportunities that businesses have to get that funding. So that their products become successful in our market. And we also understand where some of the private equity is in the UK as well. So if you're in that space where you want investment and need investment, whether that be seed corn investment or more likely sort of Series A, Series B investment, we can help point you in the direction of the organizations who are interested in investing in your innovations. And real world evaluation is something I'll talk about in a slide or two that's really important to us as well. And that's really emerging in importance in the UK over the last year, and will be as we move forward. How do we factor in real world evaluation into the impact of a product in the system? It's more than just a diagnostic accuracy of a product. It's how it's used in the real world. So as a bit more of a detailed example, real world evaluation, what does the AHSN mean by that? Well, we will really help you identify the challenge or the gap in your evidence base that would be addressed by doing this work. And sometimes this is about evaluating implementation as much as it is about evaluating impact. We'll help you find the locations to do the work. We'll work on the timescales for delivery. We'll plan for delivery. We can even be seconded into helping program manage this work. But the outputs from this work feed your business case. They help you get more funding. They help you spread your product into the next site. Because you're sharing the learning you've developed in a real world setting. And this will also help you innovate your next iteration of your product as well. The key thing about real world evaluation, it helps you spread to your next customer. Because it's not always, as I said, about does it work? It's how do we make it work in our system? And that's something that's emerging in importance, not just in the HSNs, but also in places like NICE, who offer guidance to this industry, and also the regulator, MHRA. How are things used in the real world? And really understanding that is really important. And it's something that the HSNs have developed some skills in. A brief pitch for us in Yorkshire and Humber. We're launching our Digital Accelerator Programme on the 1st of September this year. That's a 6-month programme where we bring SMEs into a programme of support that helps them accelerate their journey into the market, It's not just us. The City Council is a partner. Barclays Bank is a partner. Their Eagle Labs program sponsor us. Hill Dickinson is an international law firm who help sponsor the program and provide content. And we base it all in the University of Leeds in the Nexus building that Chris talked about. So we've got international partners in banking and in law to help you navigate that entry into our market should you wish to engage with this system. Now this will be launching in September. You're welcome to apply, but it's a program where we really want people in the city, so it might be a little bit of a challenge at short notice. However, we're thinking of bringing this program into a boot camp next year, probably in February, and compressing it all into a week. And what we want to do is boil down what the AHSN does into a program focused on digital innovators. We'll try and bring your knowledge base of the NHS up to speed. We'll describe to you how to go about seeking funding and building your business in the UK. We'll offer you legal support, networking, loads of networking opportunities, and loads of mentorship from different people in the system. Healthcare professionals, academics, business people will all be available to you to help you understand the market that you're coming into. So the bootcamp will be launching next year, probably in late February, early March. And I think that may be an area that some of you may be interested in. It's a way of coming to the UK for a week or two and really getting an in-depth, quite intense week or two of work to really understand what's in front of you in our market. It does work. This is a company called Heartflow that we've worked with for about 3 years now. They're an American company, North American company. They have a digital tool that takes a CT scan of someone's heart, does a 3D reconstruction, and really predicts whether you need an expensive and invasive angiogram or you don't. And we've helped drive the adoption of that tool into most of the trusts that have the right equipment to run, the CT scanner with the right resolution to run that test. And you can see that when we took that on in June 2018, within about 2 years, we'd almost saturated the market with that. And that's not a trivial test. That's a reasonably expensive test, costs £700 to do each of them. So the technology works, but actually helping them with their business plan and the real world evidence about how it prevents unnecessary treatments was all part of what the AHSN did to help and support that business in the UK. And you can see that company's really invested in the UK. They've got a UK office, and actually the UK is a really good market for them now. And we've been a key part of that success. And there are many other examples we can quote and share with you should you be interested in seeing that. And some of the statistics at the end there talk to that. I'm going to finish there. I think that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what the AHSN network is about. Just to finish and re-emphasize, we are a national network. I am personally interested in you coming to the north of England and working with us in the north, but we are a gateway to the entire market. So if you are interested in this market, then reach out to any of us on the call on the calls today. Myself, Mandy, Neil, Chris, Helen, we're all here to support you on that journey, and we'll be very happy and in fact delighted to see you when COVID permits it in country and interacting with our fabulous assets on the ground. I'll stop there and thank you very much for your time, and we're happy to take any questions in the panel session.
Well, thank you so much to Neville, and thanks so much to NHSA, LTHT, and YHAHSN for today's very informative and very helpful sharing on UK and NHS market, as well as on how Taiwan can collaborate with UK in regards to medical innovation R&D and clinical validations with the goal of getting adopted and implemented by UK's healthcare system. We will now have our QA sessions. I would like to welcome our speakers, as well as Neil Toner, the Program Manager of the Enterprise and Innovation of YHAHSN, to join our QA sessions. During our QA sessions, we will start with questions asked by most of the audiences. If you have other questions or any questions that will require one-on-one private discussion with BPIPO's UK partners, please remember to fill out our webinar satisfaction questionnaire and your request for one-on-one private discussion, which the link is actually provided down below the YouTube video window. So let's begin our first question for the session. So the first question is actually being addressed to all the speakers today. And the question is, due to Brexit, will UK be a shortcut to enter EU's healthcare market? So should Mandy, you start by answering this question?
Thank you, Susan. So I think these are complex questions, and my colleagues might want to say more about it. But I think certainly the NHS market is one that I think if you have evidence, within the NHS of your product's effectiveness and impact, that I think that is very well regarded throughout Europe and the world. So I would say that the working with the UK and the North is an excellent way of starting that journey. My other colleagues might want to add to that.
Yeah, I'll come in on that one. That's a really good question, because we hear that a lot, but I think our experience to date is Brexit, it hasn't affected the ability of the UK to be an agile regulator, a good regulator, a well-respected regulator, and a springboard into many other markets, including Europe. At the moment, there's no active divergence between the regulatory pathways in the UK and the EU, and that we hope certainly will remain the case for some time. So I think the answer to the question is I wouldn't think that Brexit will be a challenge to you springboarding your product into the rest of Europe.
I'd like to reiterate and agree with that as well. My experience so far has been that companies, international companies in particular, have continued to work with us without issue really for using the UK as a gateway to other markets, including the United States. So we as Mandy said, really was, if you can make it work in the NHS, you can prove the benefit of it anywhere, and that's definitely still been the case for us. So I've not really found any pause to our plans as a result of Brexit either, and sort of on the ground floor.
I can add one other angle from that: health technology assessment process and evidence generation. So because NICE in the UK and England follow that model, and our partners will help companies develop high quality evidence that meets the standards of in future being submitted to NICE for evaluation. There are other countries that follow that same model, countries in Europe. The US increasingly looks for evidence generation of that form for the FDA submission processes. So really, having worked here, that evidence will be translatable into other systems because of the quality and the reputation that will come from having produced it here in England and the UK.
Great. So we will now move to our second question, being asked by most of the audiences on today's webinar. The second question is, in NHS system, is the self-pay way available? If the treatment fee for some medical devices is not covered by the health insurance, are the hospital going to be willing to buy this kind of devices?
So I'll come in there again. So there is no health insurance system in the UK. We are talking about a publicly funded health system where treatment is available to everyone equally across the UK. Now, there are individuals in the UK who have private insurance, and that does exist, but it's the minority. And most people, particularly for critical treatment, will use the NHS. And the UK is set up in such a way that we're all taxed and that we all pay for the NHS. And it's free at the point of care for all of us. So it's a different payment system here, and again, that's part of the navigation challenge when you come to the market. But if your product meets a need in this system and is cost effective and benefits patients, there is a market for it. The NHS will pay for it, and it will be used. And the NHS is fantastic at adopting technology from other places, as well as its own homegrown technology. So I think the challenge isn't necessarily how it gets paid for. That is an issue, obviously, but it's, does it work in our system, and does it address a need, and does it improve outcomes and help drive efficiencies in our system? If the answer to those last two questions is yes, then you've got a very good chance of being able to break into our market.
Anyone else wants to add to that?
Yeah, certainly. So just kind of reinforcing exactly what Nev has said, for us, sort of at the Leeds Teaching Hospital Trust, for example, we would work with our collaborators and partners ultimately to generate the evidence and build up a business case, which we would then submit to our procurement team. So at a local level, you'd be looking at being procured by the trust and having the business case to justify the cost of that, which is why the health economics analysis and the real world evidence studies are so important in order to achieve that. So as you move along the pipeline, you start moving more towards clinical service evaluations and real world evaluation type projects, which are vital for proving the procurement of that technology at a trust level. But then, of course, as Nev mentioned before, the big goal really is to penetrate the NHS. So then you'd often work with a trust such as Leeds or any of the other trusts that you're partnered with as demonstrator sites of that technology, and then work with your academic health science networks to look at adoption and spread of that technology across the whole system, which is kind of very different to what the question initially asked, because that question actually isn't that actually that relevant to how the UK is set up. It's a much more evidence-based procurement and adoption type system. But that's what everyone on the call here today are equipped to do and equipped to help with.
And can I add one other point? So I think the company was asking, perhaps in an unusual case or a specific, maybe a high cost technology for a rare patient group, for example, there is a system by which clinicians can apply for individual funding requests to NHS England and Improvement. It is in those sort of rarer need occasions, where something's not broadly commissioned. So that process is there. If a company was, for example, to have a real clinical advocate, somebody they've worked with quite closely through research, that might be a way to get some technologies to patients through that individual funding request process.
That's a good point, Helen, as well. And I think the recent example in Sheffield is in paediatrics, where I think there's been some very expensive treatment, sort of over £1 million, £1.7 million per treatment given to a child in Sheffield with a genetic disorder. Sort of a gene therapy type treatment as well. So again, that'll have gone through a specialized commissioning route. So there are all sorts of procurement routes to get products used in the market where we can clearly articulate the benefits.
Got it. So our next question is actually being addressed to NHSA. And the question is that from Helen's presentation, does that mean that NHSA can actually help to introduce mentor or consultation services for business in Taiwan who looks to the UK for partnerships and commercial opportunities with the NHS? For example, Taiwanese service provider that work in digital health, dealing with data management system. Will you be able to help them introduce to their partners in UK?
Yes, as it was my presentation, hopefully maybe that question came in before hearing from Chris and Nev, because essentially the partnering we do and the mentoring and the navigation is via our members. So not only Leeds and the Yorkshire AHSN, but for example, if they were to go there first and not find a successful partnership for many reasons, it may be clinical capacity, it may be other companies are being supported with a similar technology, for example, so there may be a conflict of interest, then via the NHSA, we can make introductions into the other regions of the north as well. So you've got that real large scale by which we can hopefully successfully connect companies. And equally, even if there isn't an opportunity in the north, the NHSA has a partnership with an organisation called MedCity, which is a similar life science support organisation covering London and the Greater South East. So equally, we can look to have that north-south access through the whole of England to help companies perhaps initially land in the north, but then expand into other populations throughout England as well. And indeed the other home countries through our links with Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales.
Got it. Thank you so much to Helen. And the next question is actually addressed to Christopher. And the question is that, are there any specific criteria or eligibilities for international businesses or Taiwan businesses who wants to work with the Leeds Teaching Hospital in digital health?
I think in short summary, no, we're quite open to having the conversation about all ranges of technology that are available. As sort of mentioned a few times in all of our talks, really, it's about addressing an unmet need. So it usually starts quite informally to find out more about the technology and what you have on offer. And then we kind of reach out into our system to see if there is an opportunity to collaborate. So there is no real criteria for working with us or engaging with us in that first instance. We really are quite an open front door in terms for engaging. So that is fine. You can certainly contact me through LinkedIn. People often do that, or through other forms of media that just to have that first conversation. We will be moving more towards the model whereby we're more proactive rather than reactive. So we will be reaching out a lot more into our system to identify our unmet needs, which also may help yourselves in Taiwan, where we can go and say, we have a list here of things that are a problem for us. And if you are a good fit for that, then you know you have a higher chance of success. But at this point in time, I would just say, please reach out to us, to any of us really on the call today, just to have that initial conversation to see if we can help and support.
Got it. And we also have another question that's related to the question that we just asked. And this question is that since the Leeds Teaching Hospital is going to open 2 new research projects, one is on the Children's Hospital and another one is on the Adults Hospital. And you also mentioned that you welcome all the innovative companies to work with you. Is there any specific area of technology or devices that you are seeking for? And what kind of collaborations are you looking for? Do you just seek for new technology to adopt, or do you simply just look for procurement opportunities to procure solutions from Taiwanese companies?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So there are certain areas that we probably focus on a bit more, and I gave some examples of those. So AI type diagnostic solutions, which are linked to IVDs, or perhaps imaging based diagnostics for radiology, where we're interested in things that can improve our clinical genetics services. Anything to do with remote monitoring, because we're very much wanting to link ourselves into community so that we can keep an eye on those patients. There is a really broad portfolio though, so I wouldn't want to limit anyone. If they're not in any of those categories, there still would be an opportunity, I'm sure, as long as it addresses an unmet need. So I would want to keep that door very open to have those conversations. In terms of procurement and adoption, I would say the chances of you coming in with a new piece of technology that we have not seen before and then getting it procured is probably quite low. We typically would want to have worked and engaged with you as a company for a little bit of time. So it's not that couldn't happen, but there would be a full sort of market analysis of you and your competitors to see why we would procure that technology, and it often works much better if you're already engaged with us. And this isn't just for us as a trust, this is kind of a UK-wide message. If you've worked with an organization and you've generated the evidence from within, it's much easier to then build up a business case for why we should procure and adopt the technology, because the clinicians know that they want it, the clinicians have worked with it, the patients have agreed that they like it as well. There's a whole sort of pathway that's required in order to build that business case. And very often companies, even though they're even market ready, they may think that they could be procured and adopted, but the NHS actually needs to generate further evidence with them. And that's kind of what we're here to do. So even having CE marking or FDA approval, etc., it's not always, or very often not enough for us to actually buy this technology and procure it or adopt it across the NHS. We would probably want to generate more evidence with you, very, very high quality evidence to prove the benefit of it, and to prove to our procurement teams that this is something that the hospital really needs. I hope that helps. I don't know if anyone else also has anything to add to that.
I think you're right, Chris. I think this gets to the real world evidence piece that we talked about a little bit as well. So it's not more evidence that your product works or is accurate. It's how do we make it work in our system that we're really keen to work with you to understand. Because if we get that right, then you can sell to many, not just to one organization in the UK. So really understanding how it's implemented into a pathway in an NHS setting is really important to us. So we're not saying you have to do more diagnostic accuracy work, for example, or is the algorithm accurate? What we're saying is, how do we make it work in our system? Capture that, describe that to other customers. That will make your next sale much easier in our market. And I think that's what I think Chris is really alluding to as well. So you need to work with one organization to do that, and then use that as a springboard into the wider market. And Leeds in particular is very well set up to do that on a number of levels, from access to people with expertise in that methodology to clinicians who are interested and keen, to the pop-up hub that exists to engage, right the way through to the Nexus building if you want to put down a base camp in the UK. So I think that's what we're talking about in this. It's not repeating work that you've already done, it's understanding how something works in the UK.
Got it. So the next question is actually addressing to all of the speakers today, that since we are talking about digital health, AI development is actually one of the key trends that people are actually trying to work on right now. So for AI development, because it actually requires big data analytics of health and civic data sets, so what are the data sets that are available in the UK and how do Chinese companies access them?
So that's another very astute question. So there are a lot of really good annotated data sets in the UK, usually associated with infrastructure that has been invested in by UK PLC, the government, or by the NHS. So in our patch alone, we run the National Pathology Imaging Collaborative, which is almost £50 million worth of public and private money to digitise histopathology slides and make them available for research. They have an ability to engage with anybody from anywhere who's interested in that data set of images to help build an algorithm. There's a series of research tissue banks all across the UK. There's one in Leeds as well that can be engaged with to help you with diagnostic accuracy work. There are other data sets assets in the UK. We have the digital innovation hubs. Again, we can share some more information about that. Again, there's another one of those based in Yorkshire in Leeds. That's a cancer digital innovation hub as well, where there's an ability to access data in a safe space. So the data exists in a safe space. You come to the data, you do your work, you take your algorithm away, and the data never leaves that safe space. So there's a variety of digital assets all the way across the UK that you can engage with specifically to get access to that data. Some of that requires funding. Quite a lot of it requires funding, in fact. But there are mechanisms by which you can apply for that funding to generate the income that you need to pay for those services. So again, engage with us on this call if you have specific needs or requests around data, and we can point you in the right direction and help broker some of those initial discussions.
Good. And there's also one related question, that is, during data access or collections in UK, do Chinese companies need to follow GDPR of the EU, or is there any different regulation in UK right now?
GDPR is the one to follow because it's exactly the same in the UK. It's called something slightly different, but it's exactly the same.
Got it. Got it.
I add something there, Susan, just to explain a little bit more about the NHSA's Data and AI programme. So as Mandy introduced, we have expert networks that we've brought together across the members, one of which is Data and AI. The AI programme is just forming at the moment, so we're covering, as your audience and the companies will appreciate, artificial intelligence can mean anything from sort of the maths and the statistics right through to the training and the validation of the algorithms that might be applicable to imaging or pathology, genomics. What we do have is an excellent track record of using our electronic health records within the hospitals to produce population health studies, to conduct service evaluation. There was a large-scale project conducted by all members through 2016 to 2020 called Connected Health Cities that demonstrated a vast range of study types and projects. Now, we've kept those members together and engaged, and we still seek and lobby to government that actually this is an area that needs investment and will lead to economic growth if we can continue and create more capacity of data analysts, people who can do federated data analytics. It's really important to the public here in England that their data isn't shared with companies for commercial purposes. They would like to see it retained within the healthcare systems. So the model we're proposing is essentially the data is retained within those healthcare systems, but we can provide companies with the access to analysts who can run study protocols for them on those data and can deliver the results to them without sharing the data itself, which is very important for data protection, GDPR, etc. So that is the model we're looking towards for supporting the AI industry. And we have that network of experts who are helping inform the data custodians around which data sets are of most value, how they would need to be curated to answer these study questions from industry. But there are two different environments. There's a research environment where the ethics are very well understood, but then there is also the commercial use of the data, which sits in a different arena. And we're spending time working at the moment, particularly with AI companies, to really understand their needs and help and support provision of a service around that algorithm development, validation, training, etc., on different populations as well.
Got it. And thank you so much for your answers. And the next question is actually being addressed to Neville. And because since the Yorkshire and Humber AHSN is one of the innovation arm of the NHS system in UK, do you guys actually list any of your needs or for innovation or any of your procurement leads on your website, or is there any list that you actually release to the public so people can just go look at it and then try to basically offer the innovations or provide you with solutions that can actually solve the NHS problem?
So again, very good question. I think the short answer is yes, but it's not quite as simple as that, because the AHSN network, as I said, covers 15 geographies. So our needs in our geography are slightly different to our neighbours. They're similar, but there's slightly different nuances as well. But I think, a bit like Chris said earlier, our health, we're open to look at anything that you're doing, and then reach out to the system to see where there's a need, because sometimes we don't know there's a need until we ask the question as well. But I think on the broad sort of the national picture, our needs are fairly well laid out in the NHS long-term plan. We know where our challenges are in terms of how do we manage outpatients better? How do we use AI in our systems? How do we deal with mental health? How do we deal with an aging population? How do we deal with cardiovascular disease? So I think the long-term plan outlines a lot of the needs of the NHS, reasonably succinctly. And I think we are very responsive to that. But I think the message I would give to all of your innovators today, Susan, is if you think you have an innovation that can deliver health benefits in any system, come and talk to our system. And we will tell you if it's not a good fit really quickly. So we'll save you a lot of hard work. If it's not going to be a good fit, we'll let you know really early. If we think it might be a good fit, we'll do that further level of engagement, and that won't cost you anything. That's what we're all set up to do. And I think we'll do that quickly and efficiently. And as I said, sometimes a quick no is as important as a sort of a vague maybe. But we'll give you that no quickly and then move on where there's positive engagement. Chris, is there anything you want to throw into that as well?
Yeah, a couple of points, but you covered it mostly there, Nev, really. So at a local level, I guess, as mentioned earlier, we have kind of worked in a reactive way, as was described just there. So you kind of come to us, and then we reactively go out and try and find if it addresses an unmet need, and that will still continue to be the case. But we are, I think I mentioned this in my talk as well, we are reaching out into our own system at a local level to generate that list, as you describe it, of unmet needs, which we can go out almost like a shopping list to ask people to help us with those needs from all over the world. But by no means does that list mean that's it. So, if you don't address that list, that's it. You can't work with us, because, and Nev put it very well just then, that we sometimes don't know that we have a need until the technology is in front of us. So I think as we move towards kind of establishing in Leeds kind of this innovation hub and system, we will kind of do both. We will have the proactive, this is our list of unmet needs, and those should address quite a few of the needs in the NHS as a whole, because it's quite, the organisations are always quite similar. And then we will have the reactive way of working as well. So we won't be closing the door by any means. And again, just because we have that problem at a local level doesn't mean that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't more problems at a regional level or a national level. So there's several different ways of addressing unmet needs.
Got it. And another related question is that what will be the time frame for a usable product to enter into a trial in England, and also how will be the related findings that will that will be able to used by the Taiwanese companies to support their trials or their clinical validations or their RD activity in England.
I can start with that one to get the ball rolling. Ultimately, it really depends on every single case that comes to us. They're all often very bespoke. It depends where you are on your R&D pipeline, what we ultimately decide we need to work with you on. So if you still require quite a lot of preclinical evidence, then you might be looking at still at a couple of years in order to do that. If you're already at the point where you have all the preclinical evidence, we could move quite rapidly to first in man to break that translational barrier. I don't think we could realistically give you an answer to how long it would take, because every single case is slightly different. So we would have to kind of work with you to find out where you are and what we would need to do in order to kind of give you an estimated timeline. One of the biggest rate limiting steps is often funding. So if you pay for a trial yourself, it's usually a lot quicker, but obviously a lot of smaller companies don't have that money. So acquiring the funding is often usually the first step, and then those projects are first in man are quite often a year or two in length, really at most, and then so you're looking at doing that and then building up your portfolio to sort of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 type trials. So, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily going to be the quickest system, but it will generate the highest quality of evidence that you would want. But again, I think we'd have to look at every single case by case to see how long it might be. So I wouldn't really want to give you, like, say, 5 years or 10 years, because we honestly wouldn't know until we start working with you.
I see. And is there
something there, Susan?
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. It's okay.
It's just to add in terms of speeding that or attempting to create a model that helps companies get through faster. We do now have a research platform structure. It's part of the COVID-19 learning about how to get diagnostics evaluated and into service quicker. Of course, it was driven by necessity, but it's something that we want to carry on in England. So, for example, there's a platform named Condor, CONDOR, which established the research protocols, the standardization of what the evidence should look like at the end. And it really meant that as time progressed, companies could enter that research platform and be accelerated through it much quicker, because it was a standard design, a standard study design. Expected outcomes were known. The partners who were supporting that evaluation service all grew the experience and were able to become more efficient as a platform. Now that translates across a number of different areas. For example, infectious diseases. There's a large project in the north which looks at infectious diseases on 6 to 8 different platforms, different clinical needs. So if a company happens to fit with a research platform, that might be a way in which they can get their results more quickly.
Got it. And is there any fundings for Taiwanese companies setting up their offices or companies in UK? Are there any funding supporting that?
You're on mute now.
I'm on mute. Apologies. There's loads of funding to support that sort of stuff. Everywhere in the UK is interested in bringing good businesses and creating good jobs. And I think there's loads of support we can tap into for organisations that want to do that. And I think, getting to Helen's point, the UK has learned a lot through the pandemic about how to do this stuff more efficiently. We were a fantastic country for the vaccine trials. We still are. We delivered a lot of patients at speed. So for that sort of clinical research, preclinical research, we're really good. But we're also really mindful, if you've got a digital innovation, that you can't wait for 3 years for it to be approved. So there are mechanisms to do that sort of evaluation at pace, so that your digital innovation reaches the market when it's useful, and you're not sitting on the sidelines, watching your competitors evolve and innovate while you're in stasis. So there's lots of opportunities here to think about how we engage with you to build whatever evidence base you need to enter the market, and we can do that in a proportionate way.
Got it. And so we would like to have our last question because our time is close to an end. So before we end, we would like to ask the last question for today, and that is, with the COVID-19 pandemic shutting down people-to-people interaction, contactless or remote healthcare services seems to be the future development trend. Will this also be an area for NHS priority innovation? How does the healthcare sector see in this transformation?
Oh, wow. Where to start? So, yeah. Being able to access patients, not in the hospital setting, but in their own homes, is a massive driver in the UK at the moment. Remote monitoring of patients, outpatients, discharged patients, elderly patients. How do we do that in a way that is inclusive? Isn't affect, some demographics in the UK suffer from digital poverty. Not everybody has Wi-Fi. How do we do that in a way that doesn't exacerbate health inequalities in the UK is a really interesting challenge at the moment as well. But Susan, honestly, at the moment, there's a real appetite in the UK, whether it's remote monitoring, remote diagnostics, remote consultation. How do we do that in a really efficient way? I mean, Chris, in LTHT, this is one of the big conundrums at the minute. Chris is building a hospital that will have less beds in it than he has now, because we recognize that we need to shift the model of care to a setting that's different from now. So in 5 years from now, we need to be treating patients outside of hospitals, but with just the same quality. So it's a real challenge. There's real opportunity. There's loads of innovation. And if you've got something good, we'd like to hear about it.
Good. Anything that Chris wants to add to that?
And not really. I think Nev summarized it very, very well, and it's very articulate about it. It's pretty much the driver for us. It's the remote monitoring is a key goal for us as well as these new hospitals open up. But it's not just about the new hospitals. It's about having that legacy element as well. It needs to also be functioning in our previous hospitals, and it needs to function in other trusts around the country as well. So yes, maybe the digital hospitals of the future will help to generate the evidence and be a driving force for it, but the entire system needs it. And yeah, exactly as Nev said, we're interested, and we would like to have that conversation and see if it works for us.
Got it. And how about Mandy and Helen? Do you guys want to add to that?
I think, again, they've summarised it very well, and Chris as well. It's part of our programmes is to look at the unmet needs, the drivers of our members, drivers of the NHS, and support. Our primary goal is to work at scale, to connect the skills from across our members and give industry the support to conduct larger scale studies if that's what they need, or, as we said, to move from one population to another to really build the evidence and get successful adoption here in the NHS.
Got it. So unfortunately, our QA session needs to come to an end, and we apologize for not being able to answer all the questions that have been asked by today's audiences. BPIPO will provide answers to you through your email. Should you have any other questions, or you would like to request a one-on-one private discussion with BPIPO's UK partners, please remember to fill out the webinar satisfaction questionnaire and your contact information for BPIPO to arrange a follow-up one-on-one meetings with our UK partners. The questionnaire and request form could be accessed from the link down below the YouTube video window, and BPIPO will also send you this forms so that you can actually follow up from your email. So we've actually going to reach to the time where we are going to have a conclusion to our webinar. So I would like to welcome my Deputy Director, the Deputy Director of BPIPO, Ms. Seung Chen, to conclude today's webinar. Let's welcome Ms. Chen.
Okay. Thanks, Susan. It's an honor to be here, and I'm really grateful to have all the distinguished experts from government, industry, academic, research, and the medical institution attend this event. I believe with everyone participating actively in discussion, we all learn a great deal from each other today. I'd like to give special thanks to our four speakers, Dr. Dixon, Helen, Dr. McKee, and Dr. Young, for giving us a complete and detailed instruction regarding the United Kingdom medical and health insurance type, collaboration structure, and key points. By having the chance to communicate with NH3 outstanding and extensive medical health networks, this will definitely be a great starting point for stimulating industrial innovation. From the perspective of international trend, we believe that priority should be given to the cooperation in 6 areas, including advanced therapies, diagnostic, sustainability, mental health, AI, and health aging, which bring about new business model and develop a new product that are closer to the needs of human health. More importantly, this event can once again bring bilateral cooperation and exchanges between the UK and Taiwan closer, as well as strengthening the bonds for future mutual assistance and collaboration. In the end, I want to thank you all again for attending today and hope that this event help you find a partner or business opportunity in UK. Wish all of you a good health and a great day. Thank you.